Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of the AR-15 podcast is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to the AR-15 podcast. This is the podcast about your favorite black rifle. This show is for you. Whether you're building your first AR or you've been building ARs for years, there is something we can all do to take our black rifle to the next level.
You make this show possible by clicking through our Brownells and Amazon affiliate links. The next time you order online, go to AR15podcast.com and click through our Brownells and Amazon affiliate links. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and a small portion of your sale goes to supporting pro-gun radio like the AR-15 podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 148 of the AR-15 podcast. We are going to sit down tonight and discuss some things that I believe have some relevance due to recent events. But before we get started and explain what we are about tonight, I want to let you all know that Anthony Hardy is going to be coming back in his light duty capacity as a co-host. Anthony, it's good to see you.
Welcome back, man.
He's just waving. He's silent. He doesn't even remember how to unmute his microphone. So, we wanted to let you know that we are in the midst of registration for our giveaway for the Vortex Spitfire 1-Power Prism Scope. And this may very well be the last podcast you will hear before the actual drawing on Thanksgiving Day. So we want to remind you that if you have a first responder in your life that you are proud of, that you appreciate, that you want to thank, we'd ask you to go over to the show notes or come on over to our Facebook page and click on the links presented so that you can enter your favorite first responder for this drawing. Once again, it is a Vortex Spitfire 1-Power Prism Scope. So, everybody, I'm assuming that we all have heard of the tragic events in Paris, and JD, you brought up a pretty valid point, and I think that really circles around the idea of America being a nation that allows us to own firearms, unlike France. We as citizens in a place where an armed society is a polite society have the ability to take firearms of defense with us, so that if something like this were to happen, we might be prepared for, who knows, a response, a tactical retreat, just making sure that if someone is going to directly engage you, you're not going to be unarmed. So I think it really is kind of a very, very topical discussion. But why don't we weigh in on everybody's thoughts about, kind of what these recent events have kind of spurred in terms of thought for everybody. JD, tell me what's on your mind.
For me, I have a CCW, so I have a sidearm with me. But seeing the extent of the attacks and the things that have gone on before, just realizing that it might be time to start considering having something a little bit heavier in the arsenal that travels with me. Not because I want to be a hero or not because I hope something happens. It's just because I want to be able to get out with my life, to get back to my family if something happens. I work in a major city on the West Coast. I work in a horrible part of town. So we're starting to see things. I was just talking to somebody at work. we've had 4 bodies show up within a mile radius of our work in the last 6 weeks. It's whether it's terror, whether it's something else, it just maybe a little bit more peace of mind to be better prepared.
Yeah. JW, what are your thoughts?
I guess seeing some of the images that have come out of Paris, especially in the concert hall, it's a really frightening experience to try and put your mind into, that somebody would come in, basically lock everybody in, or block the exits, kind of with guys with guns and bombs, or grenades, and everybody inside is just stuck. They're living in a society where chances are much higher than not that no one in the audience is prepared to defend themselves with lethal force. It's just something that's not available to the average citizen there. Their laws for concealed carry are extremely restrictive, and they're really connected to individuals that use them on more of a commercial basis, guys that carry cash around, security guards at banks, things like that. So the average citizenry becomes that much softer of a target that can't fight back with the same level of lethality as some of these attackers are presenting. So it's a really scary situation to put yourself into, where you're stuck in a building. These terrorists have presented themselves. You have no way to escape and no way to fight back at the same level as they're presenting. So I guess the first thing that you think about stateside is that hopefully you live in a state where you are able to arm yourself, so that if a threat arises that's presenting a lethal threat to your life, to the lives of the people that you're enjoying a concert with, that you can actually respond to that threat, that your options aren't only run or hide, but you actually have a third option available, and that's to fight. And the fighting can preserve your life longer, and what it can actually do is preserve the lives of everyone in that theater a lot longer as well, if you're willing to stand up and fight for the rest of the audience there.
Anthony?
Well, I work in education, in higher education actually, and we teach run, hide, fight as a 3-tier option for our faculty and staff, because we currently do not have concealed carry allowed. But that seems to be the standard across the nation here currently, and it seems to me that in the case of Paris, had there been someone that had the means to fight, that situation would likely have been drastically different. So, being able to move from just a concealed carry into, like what you guys were saying, move into something a little bit heavier, move into a rifle, does seem like a really good idea. So I can definitely tell where that would be. That's something that I've given serious consideration to, and have actually, from time to time, I have made sure that I had some other options available to me while I was on campus that were legal. They're stored legally, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not carrying anywhere I'm not supposed to, but made sure that I have some other options available to me other than just a handgun.
Well, I think these are all really, really outstanding points. So why don't we go ahead and begin the topic? And JD, I'm going to kind of let you lead the discussion here. These are your thoughts in the notes. So why don't you go ahead and get us started here with our first point.
So what came to mind is, what would be the ideal truck or trunk gun that we could carry, something that you could have secured in your vehicle, that would be close to you if you commute, something you'd have access to if you needed it in a situation. Just a couple reasons why. We look at Paris, and sometimes news like that, it's far away, but it can also happen here. There's been incidences here where somebody armed in the crowd, or somebody that was able to bring in something a little bit bigger, may have been able to protect others or protect themselves. So protection from a major event. We live in a day and age when terrorism is just a reality of life. It is something we're going to have to deal with from here on out, probably. Self-defense is another reason why. If you're out shooting, sometimes that truck gun can be the protection, the gun that's just left alone to have in case a situation arises where you need it. Like I stated, I work in a major city on the West Coast. We're in a bad neighborhood. We had somebody take a machete to a child in our neighborhood. It is, we've seen it steadily go downhill, and relocating the business is not an option. So workplace protection is something that we've really talked about over the last couple of years. And thankfully, I work for an employer that it's not scary for them to see me walk down the hall with a rifle or something, or have a shotgun in the office. They're pretty supportive of that, to protect the 11 employees we have in the office, and also myself. Another thing is, if something crazy breaks out, we've seen terrorist attacks, riots, things like that, I want to get home to my family. I may not be able to drive all the way there, so I may have to walk, and I may have to be protected in that walk home. So having a pistol is great, but if you have a rifle, it gives you a little bit more of an advantage to get home, and gives you a little bit more firepower in case somebody wants to come in between you and getting to your family. So those are the reasons, Reed, why I thought it was important to be prepared, to have a truck gun. And I mean, there's all sorts of different options to make it happen. But I was thinking about Anthony and JW. I don't know if you want to drop your $2,500 AR into your trunk, or have it mounted in the back of your truck. So cost is definitely something I was thinking about. If I was going to buy a truck gun, or something I kept in the trunk, I'd want to spend probably $400 to $700 max. I don't know how do you guys feel about that? Something in your car that, unfortunately, in this day and age, there's a possibility it gets stolen. You used to be able to have guns in a gun rack, and it's no big deal. Now, somebody knows it's there, they can take it. Would you guys feel comfortable spending in that range for a truck gun?
Yeah, funny enough, I was actually talking to one of the local police officers who works on the firearms division here in Pittsburgh. They do all of the paperwork for firearms that are recovered at crimes, that are found, that are reported stolen, and they kind of walked me through the workflow for, okay, one of your firearms goes missing, it was stolen out of your car, out of your home, what happens? How does the trace process work? What's the legality of, okay, once a gun is involved in a crime, it gets taken in by the police, how does it get released back to the rightful owner if there is one? And it's this whole complicated process that you never really think about. But it definitely brings up the fact that, well, guys that leave firearms in their cars, sometimes their cars get broken into. And whether that's because the firearm is in plain sight, or whether it's just a car is going to be broken into, whether it has a gun in it, or whether it's got a wallet in it, or a cell phone, or a GPS device, cars get broken into. So I think there's something to be said for, if it gets stolen, reducing the kind of the impact of that hit. I think if you've got a rifle and it got stolen, no matter how much it costs, it's going to be a big deal. There's going to be a lot of paperwork, and it's going to be something that you wish didn't happen. So I don't know. I'd lean more towards having something that I can depend on and I trust, rather than something that I've gotten on clearance, and haven't really tested to the full extent of maybe one of the higher end builds.
Well, I think JW, that it may have been a point that you made in another show. Obviously, when you have something in your automobile and your car gets broken into, in most jurisdictions, if you have a requirement to have insurance, or if you're carrying full coverage just because that's what you do, more than likely your firearm is covered. Obviously, if the government comes in, the insurance company comes in, I'm sorry, and pays a claim, and you're going to go out and be able to replace what was stolen pretty quickly. At that point, whatever was stolen belongs to the insurance company, and regardless of whether the police recovered or not, it's their worry at that point, and you get to proceed with your new firearm. Obviously there's limits on what's covered. I call my agent and find out what that's going to look like, but really when it comes down to it, I don't think that you should not carry something because you're afraid of the financial cost. I mean, I think it's probably pretty reasonable that on average we're not all going to suffer that same kind of loss, once, much more than multiple times. So, I think you have to put that in perspective of the, larger universe of opportunities that you're going to be a victim of that kind of crime. And then weigh that against what it is you're really trying to, mitigate.
I think one of the reasons to maybe keep it on the lower end of the price spectrum is this is probably a rifle that you're going to want to keep in place and not put into the car, out of the car, take it out to the range, shoot it all the time. It's something that is almost the equivalent of the rifle that you put in the tube and bury in the backyard. It's something that's always there, ready. It's not something that you use on a daily basis, but you're confident in it, and you've made an investment in it, but maybe it doesn't have all the bells and whistles because it's just going to be sitting there in the trunk 99% of the time.
So, Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it basically follows what you guys have already said, but the one thing I would say, and I think it's mentioned here in the outline for the show notes, it definitely is a familiarity thing, because there are things that you do when you get used to your customized firearm, like if you got a bad lever on it or something like that you do in your regular operations. So when you train, if you do have a truck gun or something like that, if you're going to use it for self-defense, if you're really going to have your life depending on this rifle, I would make sure it's outfitted in the same functional way. You may not have all the bells and whistles like JW was saying, but you should have a similar set of functions. I wouldn't, if I have a bad lever on my main rifle that I use all the time that I keep at home, I'm going to make sure I put because it's only $30 or so, I'm going to put a bad lever on the rifle I'm going to stick in the trunk, so that I know that I'm going to operate my bolt the same way. So that's
a good point.
That's one of the things that I would think about. I mean, you don't want to change, you don't want to have to rethink or move outside of your regular training when you're defending your life. So I would make sure that anything that I'm going to bet my life on has the same basic setup.
All right. So, what's our next point, JD?
I think we covered the reliability and the familiarity with the in the cost thing. So great points, guys. I was looking around just at some different options that you could have for a truck gun. Even building your own being really cost effective. The blemished uppers and lowers. If this isn't going to be the one that you get out to show all your friends, and most likely if it's in your trunk or it's in your truck, it's going to get beat up a little bit. It's going to get hit. It's going to take some bumps and bruises. So blemished uppers and lowers, maybe even parts that you've used for other builds, or you're upgrading or moving things around. So building your own may be a pretty cost-effective way to get one of those. And at the end of the day, you're looking for something that's reliable, familiar to what you're normally using. So being able to, match grade barrel and things like that may not be exactly what you need on this rifle. Also, some other ways to go. Used. I was looking around a pawn store this past weekend. It seems a lot of rifles are on the shelves, and they're trying to get rid of them. So I'm seeing prices go down a little bit. Gun broker, private party sales, and then was looking for some new ARs to see where the price range kind of lays out on some of these. And I've shot several of these and haven't had a problem. So at that price point of in between $500 to $700 at the top, there's some pretty good rifles out there, guys. Smith & Wesson's M&P15, Palmetto State, they've got their Freedom rifle at 620. Arrow's got one at 700. Wyndham 560, and Ruger at about $600. These are just some quick prices I looked up. So really, all those, unless anybody else has other experience, seem to be pretty reliable rifles to secure in your vehicle.
Yeah, for sure. I've been kind of looking at something in similar price range, hoping to get my dad into a rifle here for Christmas, and it was weighing between that or doing a build. And the prices on some of these entry rifles from guys like Smith & Wesson and Ruger are really tough to argue with once you add up all the different parts kits and uppers, and you get some choices when you can do your own build, but some of these off-the-shelf rifles are really starting to be competitive.
Have you guys heard of American Tactical? ATI?
ATI, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at our local gun shop has an ATI full build for $469.
Dang.
I think really when it comes down to it, the question of your direction and how you're going to acquire that truck gun is really down to what you can put your faith into.
Yep.
A new AR with many manufacturers that have a good reputation, there's absolutely no doubt that it's going to do what it advertises. Pawn shops, someone with a good eye ought to be able to look at most anything in a pawn shop and tell you whether, it's a lemon or not. The AR is not such a complex system that you can't divine with a, pretty thorough, check what is going wrong with the rifle. And on your build your own, as long as you're buying parts that you can properly source. If it's someplace shipping out of Hong Kong, I wouldn't even begin to think about buying it. But otherwise, most of the people that trade in these things are trading in brands and names that people know and trust. So I think it's all good, but it comes down to that bottom line of where are you going to put your faith, and that is something that I think is an individual choice. I would buy any of the new ARs that JD threw in the list. I don't think that there's anything wrong with them. Certainly I don't have experience with all of them, but you listen to people talk, and I'd build my own. The pawn shops, I don't know. That's kind of the part where I would want to make sure I'm, double checking myself and making sure I'm, not getting lured by something really cheap into thinking I'm getting one over on the pawn guy, because at the end of the day, that guy's a pro. And I think he'd probably get one over on me before I'd get one over on him. So, I think it's about that idea of faith. Because really, if what you're thinking is, when the moment comes that I have to pull this out, it better do what it says it needs to do, I have to have that faith.
Yep.
JW, what are your thoughts?
No, I agree. So we got a rifle. What are we gonna put on it? That's the fun part here. What are some accessories, optics, things like that? What do you think goes into a good truck gun build? Something that's gonna be kind of static for a long period of time. It might get jostled around, and it's probably not. It's not something that you're going to take out once a week and lube and change the batteries and all of that. So I think there's some special considerations that go into the accessories you choose.
I'd say I'd probably be on a flashlight or some sort of light on the front of it, not knowing what circumstances you're going to run into. Probably optic-wise, I just stick to pop-up sights. I try to, when I shoot with those, also shoot with those as just as much as I do with an aim point or an EOTech, so that way I'm comfortable with it. I don't have to worry about the batteries, or I don't have to worry about, where it's mounted in my truck getting hit and actually breaking and then not having anything. So the pop-up sights I feel like I could rely on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that's an interesting point. When you think about the idea that we're going to have a cost-effective build, a good, brand market, optic on an aim point, an EOTech, we're talking something that is as much as the rifle here, and it really begins to kind of counterbalance your argument. So, really when you're talking about that, it doesn't make some sense. And then to go with the lower cost, lesser quality optics, it's more susceptible to the things, JD, that you're talking about. You go buy an NC Star, I swear, even if you just took it to the range, it's not going to be sighted in from the last time you put it in the gun safe.
And as
they're
soon as the
just
temperature
junk.
drops below, I don't know, 35 degrees, the battery's going to go dead, and it's going to be useless the first time you pull it out.
So, I kind of like the idea of just a pure and simple set of iron sights. It's really hard to mess those up. You got to be some kind of a Marine to do that. But no.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards some of these lower magnified optics. I really like the 1-4s and the 1-6s that have been coming out. But the fact that this could be bouncing around in your car all day long, you really got to be confident in it. So is this a Chinese piece of glass that might wander if it starts banging around, or is this something that you got to spend $1,500 for an optic? And so at that point, we go back to our cost argument. So sticking with something fixed that for it to go out of whack, it has to have cranked a big knob and risen or fallen in its threaded adjustment channel versus something that has all these internal turrets and erectors and a much more complicated device. The other thing, just because I have had these Spitfires here rolling around for the last couple months, that's also an interesting option because you can do the 1 power, you can do the 3 power. It's very simple, and it's got the ground glass reticle. So if the battery does go dead, you still got a reticle there that you can use just fine. So I might be swayed to do something like that. But as Reed always says, you can't go wrong with irons.
Yeah, you got to make sure you have your backup irons if you're going to put an optic on. I mean, you have to do that for sure, at least.
Yeah, and I know JD kind of just mentioned it real quickly, but flashlights,
Yep.
definitely something dependable. An LED that's going to have a nice long battery life, and some good batteries. Don't just grab the cheapy CR123s, the cheapest ones you can find on Amazon. Get some good quality batteries. Check it every once in a while. Make sure it's still lighting up, and you could be definitely depending your life on the light that's coming out of that flashlight.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the complexity of your flashlight? It was just occurred to me that if you've got your rifle in your truck and your flashlight has a tape switch on it and it's been banging around and flickering on and off inside a case or something, how quickly can that burn out? And if it's just is it the Thorntail that has just a thumb activated switch, JW?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
See?
definitely something to be said for making sure you've got the right switchology, as some guys say. Is this just a temporary, like a momentary switch that just setting something on it wrong is going to activate it and it's going to burn the batteries up? Or is there a lockout feature that you could kind of unscrew the tail cap until you're ready to use it? Think about that, because I know I've got one of those APLs on a handgun of mine, and it just doesn't work because I haven't taken the time to switch the batteries on it, because it seems like whenever I throw it in a bag, that sucker activates on its own and it burns up the batteries. So it's useless to me. So think about that.
So, what about a sling? You know, here's my perspective. We're not talking about something that you are going to wade into the conflict in, that you're going to have the time to gear up and get yourself set up. You're talking about a grab it and go kind of thing. I don't know that a sling is all that necessary in that situation. I don't
think having a sling could be a bad thing.
No, but I just don't know that it really alters the math. We're not talking about a protracted engagement. We're talking about basically finding safety.
Yeah, and if JD's out with some of his kids and he's wanting to hold their hands to move them through the crowd, then maybe he wants to be able to sling his rifle rather than having to hold a kid and rifle and another kid and another kid, because he's got a lot of those kids.
Well, I hear you, but I think the flip side of that argument is if you're in that situation and you're having to strap your rifle so you can grab your kids, your rifle really isn't as important to you as it is having all of your hands free.
I think it just depends on your situation, and your situation can change. It can go back and forth from needing your hands on your rifle to needing your hands free. So if it's in a situation where you don't think you would ever need a sling, then it's just you don't really need it, but it can't hurt, I don't think.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and there's cool ways to just kind of run a rubber band around the stock or something and get it out of the way. And, yeah, I don't think it'd hurt to have it on there. Any other widgets?
JD, what are your thoughts on the sling since you have so many kids you have to handle?
No.
Well, it's easier to sling a rifle than a kid. But I was thinking the distance, when I put it in there, the distance to my work from home, it's about 24 miles.
Yeah, if you got to walk that long, that's a...
If I can sling it, it's going to help. And also, it may not be as alarming as if I have it in my arms and I'm carrying it the whole way, and that's the first impression people see is me carrying that rifle instead of it being slinged. So that's what I was thinking.
Well, I can see that. You see, that's kind of more of a, in my mind, a more drastic event. Something has happened to such a degree that you find yourself basically having a need for a rifle for a 24-mile hike back to the house.
Reed, it could be just because Wayne Newton came back to perform on the Strip and all the old ladies had blocked the roads. That's what it could be.
Well, I'd want to be armed if there were that many old ladies on the street. All right.
So looking, one of the last things, Reed, was securing it. There are several $1,000 options to secure it, and there are pretty cheap options to secure it. Kind of went listed 6 here that were different ones. Trunk or truck vault, they're really cool. I mean, I'd love to have one, but just the cost of it to carry one rifle for me is not worth it. If I did something that required those to be with me for work every day, that would be a really cool option to check out. If I wanted to relive my Jack Bauer, thoughts. But those are running, I saw some from $700 all the way up to $2,500 to spend, and some of them are in the consoles that you can do for cars, or they have a really cool one for the trunk of the car that mounts in there that you can have access to. For me, I drive a truck, so it's actually taking about 10 inches of the truck bed height and removing it and just sliding it in there and securing it to the frame of the truck. So that's cool, but $2,000 for that, not really a not really in my budget. I can buy a truck gun and a gun that I really want to have. So, another thing that came to mind is the show that you guys just did on the low-profile AR carrying cases. If you have a job that allows you to take your AR into work, or a carrying case into work, or you're not going to get in trouble, or it's not against the law, that may be a great way for you to transport that in and out if you have that low-profile case. Somebody posted on Facebook like a guitar case that they had carried their AR in, going back and forth, and they were on vacation and nobody was the wiser. Looked totally legit, but it fit, like a glove for their AR. So there's several options there. So if you're thinking that's an option for you and you haven't listened to that show with JW and Reed, check it out. That was the show number 146.
Now, wait a minute. Do you remember the Tony Banderas movie where he calls in his brothers and the one guy has the guitar machine gun?
Oh, yes.
You guys remember that movie? See, I like that idea.
I see Reed carrying around a violin case.
Especially in a concert venue. You'd be right at home.
There you go. Custom boxes for trucks and underback seats. A lot of YouTube guys using their own ingenuity to figure out ways to mount them in. A lot of where the spare tire is, using that as a way to kind of anchor it down in the trunk or in the cab of a truck. So a lot of stuff on YouTube. Big Sky Racks has overhead gun racks. They're not locked, so that brings up the, if somebody's gonna break into your car, they're gonna see it pretty quick because it's up. Case Cruiser has some cases that to transport ARs and handguns with, and a whole variety of stuff. It'd be pretty cool to see if I could secure that under the back seat of my truck, or even in the trunk of a car, because it's pretty bulky. It seems like it would take care of a rifle, whether you're going off-road or whether you're just hitting potholes on the commute. It seems like it would take it. Currently, this is my setup. It's not the greatest, but it is the cheapest. It's a couple of cables that have eye hooks on the end of them, and I wrap them around. I wrap them with cloth, go through the mag well, out the ejection port, and I wrap them around the seat post and click 2 locks on them. Yeah, they can be cut, but it's better than nothing right now. So really trying to taking my options. What do you guys think on securing weapons in your vehicle? What experience have you guys had?
I think the key, kind of like carrying handguns, is to keep it out of sight. That there's no real reasonable justification for quote-unquote open carrying your AR in your car. It's just going to be that everyone sees it. You're going to cause a lot of drama. If you ever get pulled over for anything, it's just going to heighten the tensions that much more. So keep it hidden away. It's going to keep it out of prying eyes. Maybe keep the stickers off of your windows too. I mean, there's some cool tactical stickers out there, but walking around a parking lot, I can definitely tell which one I would want to bust into in an apocalypse to load up if I'm running low on mags.
Or at least see if they're practicing what they preach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So keep it out of sight. Yeah, it's cool to have something just hanging in the back window where you can just grab it, but it's going to be pretty obvious to anybody, hey, that's something I could probably get my hands on. So keep it out of sight, whether it's locked up or whether it's in an inconspicuous bag. Make sure you are aware of the local laws as far as whether you can have ammunition in the gun, outside the gun, in a different storage container than the gun. Look all that up. Make sure you're complying.
I think that really is, rooted in, I think, something that JW, you may have said in our low profile show, and it's that whole idea of a hide in plain sight. And, that's the point about not having stickers, using an inconspicuous bag. No one is going to suspect. It's like you said, in an apocalypse situation, where are you going to go? Well, geez, who's going to look at, the minivan with a couple of baby seats in the back? Probably nobody. And they are going to gravitate towards, the, giant Jeep with the knobby tires, a bunch of stickers, and, sure. So hiding in plain sight is about being inconspicuous and not drawing attention to yourself by making choices that lead people to a given conclusion.
Well, you can always go the route of Peter Palma, and what was it he wore? His rainbow unicorn T-shirt or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, and anyway.
Well, and I got to tell you, JD, when you talk about the cable and a couple of locks, really, when you think about it, who breaks into a car with a pair of bolt cutters? Isn't that kind of the wrong tool for that job?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you never know what people are carrying around these days to get what they want to get, but you'd have to be pretty I mean, you'd have to be looking for it to find it. So the cables are, a pain. And honestly, my truck's not more than 40 feet away from me at really any given time on a normal day. So,
right.
I tend to may have a small obsession with my truck, but no stickers. No stickers.
I think the idea of a custom
Am I a
gun.
criminal for having bolt cutters in the back of my car?
Well,
No.
It depends on your jurisdiction.
Okay.
Now, if you have bolt cutters, duct tape, zip ties, yeah, you might be building the kind of kit that cops are going to question you about. You just have to be careful about the totality of the circumstances. But custom gun boxes is something that I've always kind of been intrigued with. The car I drive would lend itself to a custom gun box. And really, for me, that kind of solution, I think, would be a better bridge for what I want in terms of safety and security. But JD, you're right. It's a heck of a big investment. So I think really when you go that route, it has to be for a larger purpose. Like, are you a sportsman, or are you, in law enforcement? Any number of things. For me, I think it would make sense if I was gonna, because I go hunting often enough here, go to the range often enough, just to have something where I know I could secure my firearms in a truck vault or a custom-made box. I think that would make sense.
There's some pretty cool ideas out there at Ingenuity of people who've have done this, like the false floors in the trunk that you're able to open up and store. You may lose your spare tire area and it may be out in your trunk, but it's solid, rock solid. Seems like it's all there, but then you know where to pop it and unlock it, and you open it up and you've got plenty of space to conceal. There's a lot of great ideas out there on how to do this. So if you spend some time on YouTube, you probably get inspired to figure out something.
All right. Well, does anybody have any thoughts about where all of this discussion leads us in light of, I don't know, just general fears of chaos and mayhem and wrongdoers out in society?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different situations where you could see a carbine as a great asset to fighting your way out of a situation, whether you're in a big group and you've got to get your way back to your car to kind of increase your firepower, or maybe you're a security professional that runs security at these events and they allow you to have some sort of room in the facility where you can stage your rifles, where you can stage equipment that you're not going to keep on you during the event, but that it's close and it's ready. And so considering some of these options, hey, maybe you don't want to carry the rifle over your shoulder while you're walking past all the people waiting in line outside. Maybe you want an inconspicuous bag to carry it in. So there's whether you're an attendee, whether you're a professional providing security, whether you're just out and about on your way to work, there's some considerations that you need to take for the rifle that is going to be as close at hand as possible, that it's going to be ready long term, that it's not going to require a bunch of maintenance and fiddling with and be real finicky. It's something that you can depend on to be reliable, and to be effective to increase your lethality if you need to be fighting back.
How about you, JD?
I think for me, the recent events and thing have led me to upgrade what I keep in my truck. I had a Winchester 30-30 lever action. It worked. I was able to lock it in the back. But seeing everything and just the craziness in the world that we live today, I feel a little bit better knowing that I have more firepower in my truck that's close to me, whether it's at work, whether I'm out with the family doing something, and just really actually thinking about some different perspectives after talking to you guys tonight about this, about the familiarity and reliability, and realizing that, hey, if I take that hit and lose that gun, somebody steals it, insurance and things like that. So that would probably open up my budget a little bit more for the firearm that I choose to secure in my truck, and even the accessories I put on it. I just think we live in a day and age where I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared, especially living in a big city, living in a city that, we have a lot of crime, a lot of people come here to party and have a good time and end up doing stuff that they wouldn't normally do. So carrying a truck gun, having something in there that's an AR now, definitely makes me feel a little bit more comfortable just with my work situation, life situation, and to be able to get home to the family that depends on me every day.
Hey, Anthony, what do you think?
Well, what does it read? Help me out here. Your pistol is good to fight back to your long gun, basically, to your rifle.
Yeah, you use your pistol to fight your rifle.
Yeah, so I mean that's it. I mean, what you guys have already said is basically just a longer version of that. That's what I think.
I'm reminded of two events. Both of them happened here in Texas. So there was a art exhibit, and a couple of fellows decided to go to Garland and commit an act of terror, and the police were on scene and responded appropriately, and it never happened. But the question that crosses my mind is, what happens if something like that is going down and you're there, you see it, and you have an opportunity to intervene? Really, where should you be? And that is a very, very difficult question to ask, because you can't really conceive of every permutation of a set of events that would lead you to a good result. But to, I guess, cross that with the other event, when the fella crawled up into the UT clock tower and began shooting at kids on the University of Texas campus ages and ages and ages ago. It was civilians that went home and grabbed hunting rifles that fired back at this kid, kept his head down, and allowed law enforcement to approach the tower and climb the tower itself and get on that observation deck, or wherever that deck was, so that they could confront the shooter. Once again, in today's day and age, how happy would law enforcement be if a bunch of guys with long rifles showed up to help them out? I don't know. But when it comes down to it, I would rather have the rifle there so that when I'm in a situation, I can use my instincts and my knowledge and the circumstances to best guide my decisions. because if I don't have the rifle, it doesn't matter what I think. I can't do anything. So, that's it, guys. Any final thoughts?
That drop the mic. That was the drop the mic moment for me. I don't know if I can add. I can't add anything.
All right. Well, I guess with that, we'll go ahead and move on and kind of wrap up the show tonight. So we are still giving away Otis Technology tools and cleaning kits. And this week's drawing, David Gonzalez is going to be receiving a cleaning kit from Otis Technology. Well, actually, it's from us, courtesy of Otis Technology. But we want to let you know that we are 30 days out from giving away a complete Otis Technology Elite cleaning system, which is the big kahuna of Otis Technology kits. And so I can't remember exactly which drawing it is, but it'll be the drawing closest to the 15th of December, where we'll pick a name for that. So all of you regular, listeners, don't forget to put your name in the hat for that drawing. All right. I guess with that, we should go ahead and close out the show. JD, is that feedback, current feedback?
Yeah, that came from Facebook this week.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and go over that? Lead us off, JD.
Sean wrote in, he said, do any manufacturers make a clone of a Vietnam-era M16? Always thought that version was the coolest of the AR family with its 20-inch barrel and triangle handguards. Any of you guys know if a manufacturer makes those reproductions?
Now, did you?
I got mine from Royal Tiger Imports, and it was a complete Colt upper with a new manufactured barrel, and I got myself a stock kit. I don't remember where it was from, but it's basically an M16A1 clone. It's an original receiver with the fixed handguard, or the fixed carry handle. But yeah, real good price. It was a cool
who's that
build.
manufacturer again?
I got it from Royal Tiger Imports. I think they put it together in their shop, but the manufacturer itself is Colt. It's a Colt upper. So.
All right. Well, Sean, there you go.
Yeah.
Anthony, why don't you take the next one since it's been a while?
All right, cool.
Get you worked in.
All right, get my voice working again. This is from Joshua S. Josh says, hello, I was re-listening to the, I guess he means SBR show.
Nope.
SPR?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I've been out for a bit. I've got to go back and re-listen to some things. I was listening to the SPR show, and I'm not sure if I heard Reed correctly or not, but I think he said you could find a bolt matched to a barrel for between $250 to $400, but I can't find any cheaper than $500 plus. I'm trying to get a parts list, wish list going for my SPR build. Thanks for helping clarify this for me. So, Reedster?
I thought I saw one on Brownells, and so what I'm going to do is research that and see if I can't get back to you. Yeah.
So we're going to go on hold, and we're going to have silence for the next 10 minutes while Reed researches it.
No. I'll get back
Check
to
out
you.
the show notes, and we'll get back to Joshua on Facebook directly, and we'll definitely put the answer up either on Facebook or the show notes or both, or we'll get back to you.
All right. Well, JD, why don't you read us out?
Send any questions or comments to feedback at AR-15 Podcast. You can also send us a recorded voicemail by using the SpeakPipe plugin on the right-hand side of the AR-15 Podcast. In fact, if you get those in, I can bring them into the show for you guys. Subscribe and listen to the AR-15 podcast for free in iTunes or Stitchers. Leave us a review so the show can place higher in searches for potential listeners to discover the AR-15 podcast. Share your pictures with us on Instagram at AR-15 podcast and tag your pictures with the AR-15 podcast. Also check us out over at Periscope at AR-15 podcast for live videos from events and conversations about ARs. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/AR-15 podcast. And also check out the great podcast on the Firearms Radio Network. And don't forget to use our Brownells affiliate link for all your AR-15 parts needs. That's AR-15 podcast /parts. Also the Amazon affiliate link on the firearmsradio.tv site, or go to firearmsradio.tv /Amazon. And with that, I think episode 148 is in the books.
All right. Everybody, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Talk to you later.
All right. Good night.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.